What, you gonna bust my ass?
No, ma'am, we're just here to check on you. Some people called, they're concerned about you. What's your name?
Stella, fella.
Get my buddy here too. Yeah, well, he's not as pretty.
How much beer do you have left in those cans?
Oh, no, man. Empty.
Can I have your name?
No, that's none of your business. I'm not breaking any laws.
We're only here because of the complaint. Can't we just talk about it?
No.
So they have no wants and warrants. They're clean, so I still want to cite them.
All right, well, put yourself in their shoes, okay? Giving them a ticket, it's not gonna help their problem out.
Anybody could experience the condition of homelessness given the right set of circumstances.
I had a great job, a job I loved, project manager for a specialty construction company. And the company went bankrupt and I got laid off. I ran out of money, I had to sell everything. And I was on the street.
I became homeless because of substance abuse. I used alcohol a lot, and I remember sleeping in cars, sleeping in vacant apartments.
The thing that drove me to homelessness, not paying my bills, not being able to go to work every day, was my addiction to cocaine.
I became homeless after a very violent marriage. I didn't have any way to support myself and was asked to leave the college that I was going to because of his violent behavior. I became homeless.
In the winter, it gets down to the high 30s, low 40s. And think about it, that's the temperature your refrigerator is running at. So it's like sleeping in a refrigerator.
Life on the streets with children, it's difficult, to say the least, because you're trying to make things as normal as possible for them without making them feel like it's their fault.
The biggest stigma is that everybody is that's out there is crazy or done something wrong, and that's just not true.
Life on the streets is really, really, really rough and complicated because you spend so much time trying to survive.
For women on the street, it's always a sex trade. I wasn't about that, so, it becomes violent, or sometimes you're incapacitated and things happen to you just so you can get inside. It really makes it hard for women.
People avoided you. They looked down at you. It was a hopeless state. It was a very dark state.
Life on the street, for me, was the worst thing I've ever experienced.
By the time you lay your head down, at the end of the day, wherever you've ended up at, it can be tiresome and depressing.
For too many of us that were in that condition, the option of ending it all became more and more real. For me, it took a lot to get that internal value shifting to change back to where it was. Because you cannot stay on the streets, you cannot stay in those conditions without some kind of value system that supports it.
And it took years. I want to say I really started trying to get my life together over a 3-year period.
If it wasn't for law enforcement, I would still be on the street. I got to be actually pretty good friends with the homeless liaison deputy in Lake Forest. And he always treated me like a human being.
And today I have a great job I've been at for 8.5 years, helping those same women that were just like me. And that means the world to me that if somebody comes in and I can let one woman smile, I know I've done my job today.
I've got what I believe is a fairly unique experience of being a consumer of the type of services that I'm promoting, and also being able to shape those programs and services so they have the greatest effect on the street.
Most important thing in my life is having a place to live, having a place to shower and sleep. I am very happy with the way things are going right now.
Some of the most important things in my life right now, of course, is God first, my family, and trying to give back as much as I can, as much as I receive, just giving back, paying it forward.
The most important thing for me is continue doing the work that I'm doing and providing for my family and helping others.
My life right now is, I think, the best it's ever been.
Welcome to this Homelessness and Policing, a Collaborative Approach video program. Homelessness is a serious social issue that appears to have no end in sight. And unfortunately, negative stereotypes regarding homeless individuals are quite common. Because homelessness has become so pervasive, it can be one of the most challenging calls for service that officers encounter during their work shift. While most officers have experience in handling these types of calls, quite often there's a sense of frustration when contacting homeless individuals. It's one area of law enforcement that officers can expect high levels of repeat contacts with the same individuals. And this repeat pattern gives officers the sense that there may be no hope for helping these individuals get off the streets and improve their lives. But as you'll see in our program, that is not always the case. A collaborative approach between law enforcement and social services can make all the difference for someone who is homeless. Our program is divided into sections. Stages of homelessness, approach and contact, enforcement and collaboration, leveraging available resources, legal considerations and potential liabilities, and closing thoughts. Our goal in this program is to help raise awareness among law enforcement personnel regarding homelessness and how to effectively handle these calls for service. As with many post videos, we'll use scenarios to demonstrate some of the key points relevant to this subject matter. Also, in-depth interviews with subject matter experts and law enforcement personnel from throughout the state will cover different aspects of homelessness and best practices you can incorporate on the job.
I think the stereotypical response to homeless people is that, first off, they are throwaways in society. Not the case. A lot of the people that are out on the streets are there not of their own volition, and they are intelligent individuals. They are not bums. They choose the lifestyle frequently, and sometimes they do not. Sometimes it's thrust upon them.
Many of the radio calls that officers respond to are homeless in nature. With that in mind, it's a very complex problem. And it requires the officers to think outside the box, to think of ways to help resolve that radio call or that situation in a positive way.
We have to realize as law enforcement officers that not only do we uphold the law, but we have to do a little bit of social work when it comes to homelessness.
Officers a lot of the time will get a radio call, they'll go to a call and they'll try to resolve it and move on to the next one. This problem needs a different type of approach and a mindset. That one contact, there's going to be more to resolve that situation. And you have to kind of go into it knowing that you're going to have to dig a little bit deeper, and it may not be fixed today, but what you're doing is laying a foundation.
You need more than just what you have on your tool belt. You've got to get help from a lot of different places. It could be from social service provider. It could be from Department of Mental Health. It could be from the court system, but it's going to take a lot more than law enforcement.
Across the state and across the nation, the number of single men and single women who are homeless has gone down very substantially. In our community, 42% has gone down, but the number of homeless families has risen by almost 48%, and family homelessness is increasing, unfortunately, very rapidly.
Because of skyrocketing rents in some areas, we're seeing an increasing number of working homeless who often live in their vehicles.
Most of the time, I think when people think about the homeless community, they think about the petty thefts that the homeless community commits. What I've seen in my 25 years of law enforcement is that more often than not, the more serious crimes affect the homeless, and that the homeless are the victims of these very serious crimes. Sexual assault, child molestation, horrible beatings, deaths, kidnapping. They're oftentimes the victims.
The longer the individual's outdoors, the more services it's going to take to help them come back. And one of the key factors is building a relationship. That's what makes a difference in helping somebody trust again, because that's one of the foundational issues. They don't trust anybody.
They have no wants and warrants. They're clean, so I still want to cite them.
All right, well, giving them a ticket, it's not going to help their problem out.
Some of the more recent trends we're seeing in the homeless community are the increase in homeless families, homeless young adults, and the working homeless. Our experts will discuss these trends and explain the 3 stages of homelessness: transitional, episodic, and chronic. We'll also discuss some of the reasons people become homeless and law enforcement's role in helping homeless individuals in their community.
Partner, there's a female in the back.
Hey, guy on the side.
Sir, let me see your hands. Do you have ID on you?
Yes, yes.
Can I see it, please?
Hi, how you doing?
Fine.
Can I please see your ID?
Sure.
Okay, thank you very much. Hold on a second, okay?
Robert, you're parked in a no overnight parking lot.
Well,
Why?
Well, we lost everything. You know, we don't have anywhere else to go. We used to have a studio apartment, but my wife, she got laid off and I got injured, so I can't work.
Okay, but you're still parked in a no overnight parking. Do you understand that?
Well, now I do.
So, what's going on tonight?
My husband lost his job and he was working illegally, so he couldn't apply for workers' compensation. And then our landlord, he didn't help us out at all. He said, you have 3 days and you have to pack up and move. So we did, and I'm due in a couple days and we have a baby. Who does that?
No, I'm sorry about that. Is the baby okay?
Yeah, she's fine. She's our number 1 priority. So
she has food and diapers and everything?
Yes.
Okay.
We
And
just
you
want
don't need medical attention or anything?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. All right, just hold on. We're doing a records check on you guys, so hang tight, okay?
Okay,
thank you.
Okay. Is your wife back here?
Yes.
Does she have ID as well?
Yes, she does.
Okay, step on over here with me.
I got our ID, partner.
All right, I'm gonna go around and watch him.
Okay, hang on right here, okay? Just stand right there for me, okay? Okay. Just give us a couple minutes. We're just doing a records check on you guys, all right?
Partner.
Hold on right there.
So they have no wants and warrants. They're clean. Now, they're still in a no overnight parking, so I still want to cite them.
All right, well, put yourself in their shoes, okay? They both lost their job. She's pregnant, due any day. A little baby in there. Giving them a ticket, it's not going to help their problem out. So,
But if we don't cite them, then they're just going to keep coming back.
well, you think that's going to solve their problem? Is that what you want to do?
I still want to cite them, but it's up to you.
Okay, there's some other options. You know, in briefing, they had some pamphlets. We can give them some pamphlets, offer them some resources from the county, and let them get some help, hopefully.
Okay, that sounds good. That's what you want to do.
Cool. Okay. Over to the car.
Okay.
Hey, sir. Here's a pamphlet with some resources.
What makes this particular contact different from some other homeless contacts that we might have?
The baby.
Okay.
She's pregnant.
So what problems does that cause for us?
You deal with a child that's all of a sudden there's certain shelters that may or may not take children, and there's certain programs that would be able to take a child or a family, take a whole family in.
Okay. What do you think about the relationship, the dynamic there between the 2 officers?
It's good to bounce things off your partner. I mean, you may be thinking one thing and they may have a different avenue to go with that you didn't think of that could be able to benefit the family in this situation. You know, they're just trying to make ends meet.
Mm-hmm. What do you guys think of the idea of enforcement versus this offering services?
You got to look at every situation. I mean, in this case, like the one partner said, you've got a baby, she's pregnant, it's the middle of the night, they've got nowhere to go, they're obviously down on their luck, it's not like they're out there committing crimes or doing anything illegal. So offering resources is probably a better option than giving them a ticket at that point.
Do you think these people are going to be quick to go seek out these services?
They could be. I mean, they have a young child already, and then she's pregnant and due soon. I mean, and it sounds like he wants to work, but he got hurt. So, I mean, they seem willing and able to go get some help. So,
what do you think some of the factors are here that may prevent them from seeking services?
He said, or she said that he was working illegally.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they don't have, citizen paperwork. They're worried about immigration status.
Right. What else? What other reasons?
Also, separation. They might have to separate.
may not be a family shelter for them to go into.
Right. I think that those are two really key issues that we might see them being reluctant. So what are we going to do with these folks for the night?
Well, we all know a place in the city probably where we could move them so they're not in violation of the no parking in the parking lot, and then trying to work with them with getting resources maybe in the morning or next day.
Okay. What do you guys think about the idea of building rapport with these people? If they're not in a big hurry to receive services, the relationship that they have with law enforcement, is that going to make them more or less comfortable to move forward and getting themselves the help that they need?
When you build that relationship with them, it's going to get them to trust you more and take your advice. If you go out there heavy-handed and want to write them a ticket first off, then you're going to destroy any chance you're going to create that rapport. So you need to create that rapport so they listen to you.
Yeah. I think what Mike was saying too is like we want to start off by trying to offer them services and building that relationship that'll help get them off the street, which solves our problem. But then if we have to relate to an enforcement action down the road, we can take that stance then. But up front, I think we want to build that relationship. Yeah, I think we've all kind of seen pamphlets and called the numbers, and the numbers aren't any good anymore because the pamphlet was written 10 years ago. So I think it's important that we all understand the resources and maybe start developing relationships with those resource providers so that when we do run into this family that really needs our help, we already have made contact with some of these resource providers and we're able to bring these two entities together and really get these people off the street and get them the help they want. But that's going to start with us kind of getting to know our resources and starting to make contacts not just with these people that need our help, but also with the people that are out there providing those resources. So that's great.
On that same note, sometimes as a patrol officer, you can be out making contacts. Let's say you take some kind of theft report at a hotel and you bring it up to the hotel manager. Sometimes if you mention it to the hotel manager and you create that rapport, that relationship you have, that connection, in special situations like this, because maybe you don't run into family situations this very often, you can contact that hotel manager and say, hey, look, just for tonight, can you help us out? Can you help this family out? And you're able to get them shelter. And then you're able to send somebody to that hotel room the next day, one of the outreach people or something. But sometimes you can create your own database of information or people that can help.
Yeah, Jason, I like that, thinking outside of the box and developing those relationships. I mean, ultimately, what we're out here to do is help people, and these people, I think, need our help.
I think in the long run, too, from a patrol standpoint of view, if you're running into these problems a lot and you don't want to deal with it, if you take the time up front to go follow through with resources, figure out what options you have, every time you run into something, you're going to have that in your pocket to deal with. Yeah. You just pass that off to them, that way they can deal with whatever issues they're having. And it's going to make it easier for you in the future.
And I think we need to share resources amongst the team so that we're all kind of have some of the same resources and tools made available to us. So, all right, outstanding, good job.
When you encounter families like the one in the van that's in the scenario, here's a prime example of an encounter where that officer can make a difference, and they can make a difference very, very quickly. Because those individuals, they don't want to be there, they want to transition out, and we need to do everything we can to help them do that.
In a situation with a family that you come across in the evening hours, and they're in a situation where they have children and they're recently homeless and they're kind of at wit's end of what to do. See if there's some things you can do within your department to make an arrangement for that person. Maybe if your department has a hotel voucher program, or if there's somewhere that you can put them for the evening where they'll be in a safe environment. And then if you have some resources that you can dovetail into it the next day, have them come out, make contact, and hopefully get the people moving forward.
I think one of the things that's really important to understand is for the first time homeless family, right? Families who are not used to relying on the system, they're not inclined to call the county welfare office, they're not inclined to call a shelter, and as an officer, you may need to help them bridge that gap because it's not a natural solution for them.
Another trend that I found is a lot of families don't like to go into shelters. And I think some of the major reasons is that they don't have the ability to come and go. There are rules that must be followed.
Not all the programs fit every single situation. So, sometimes people will go to one program and it doesn't work for them because there's a lot of rules. They may not even accept their pets. So you shouldn't feel discouraged with that. There is no one size fits all to helping homeless individuals.
The episodic homelessness generally is reflective of single adults, where they transition in and out of either mental health facilities or substance abuse programs. A lot of them are on the street and then come into shelter, and they leave shelter.
Oftentimes that they're out there on the street is as a result of that mental illness, and what you say or do isn't going to change their belief, and you have to work with the illness.
There's a lot of factors that play into individuals who are chronically mentally ill and homeless and them cycling in and out of care. Part of that is that many of them are alone. There's not a good support system. Families been burnt out, especially with diagnoses such as schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. Families get burnt out at some point, and then they may perceive the family as dangerous and they just isolate themselves. There may be a history of trauma and they don't want to be inside an institution or go to a hospital because of their history.
When you're dealing with someone who's mentally ill, you want to slow it down, be clear, make eye contact, understand that they're trying to communicate with you, and it may not look like it sometimes. But sometimes it's not what comes out of their mouth, but maybe you want to look at their body language, you want to look at head nods. Sometimes it's their lips moving. Sometimes they're responding with their hands. Sometimes they don't communicate the same way that you and I would communicate.
I had to wrap my mind around doing outreaches. It's almost as if somebody was coming to my house asking me to move out of my house. That is kind of a sense of what we're doing when we're asking somebody to get into services. They've adapted to living outdoors, particularly those that have been chronically homeless 10 years. There's cases where eventually when they move in, they actually build tents inside of their rooms because that's been what they've adapted to and that's what makes them feel safe.
Some of the ways the officers can help impact the cost of homelessness is to look for alternative solutions or work closely with the city attorneys, work closely with the social service providers. Because if I can get someone into rehab for 3 months, and even though he's going to fall out, I'm not going to deal with them for those 3 months. And the cost savings on some of these people for 3 months could be huge.
HUD is the largest funder for homeless services, and their approach right now is very much a one-size-fits-all approach, which is the solution is to put everyone in permanent housing, right? And what we really believe our community needs to do is look at every individual or every family through a different lens and look at what has created their homelessness and how we can best solve it, not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Yeah, officers have to realize that the homeless people are people. We don't particularly know what incidents caused them to be in this predicament, but they have to realize that they need the help. That's part of our job, is to go out and help people and to ensure that they're safe and the people that are around them are safe.
What, you gonna bust my ass?
No, ma'am, we're just here to check on you. Some people called, they're concerned about you. What's your name?
Stella, fella.
As you'll see in this section, the methods for handling homeless individuals can be different than your standard command presence approach. Officer safety is always the priority and should be continuously maintained. However, a calm demeanor and simple verbal communication techniques can go a long way toward effectively handling these calls for service. We'll learn about these techniques in this section of our program.
This is my stuff. No. This is just mine. No, it's poison. The rays. No, the rays. No, it's mine. Can't have this. No, it's poison. Food's poison. These leaves aren't real. They're not real. This is my stuff. You can't have this. You're drilling in my head. Just stop. Just stop. Just know you can't have this. This is mine. This is my place, my stuff. This isn't even my tree. It's mine. Can't have this. My stuff. Mine. Just the razor in my head.
521 King 1097.
Oh, wow, you can take the lead on this one.
I got this.
What, you gonna bust my ass?
No, ma'am, we're just here to check on you. Some people called, they're concerned about you. Would you like to sit down?
Yeah, I'm not gonna fight.
Well, that's good to hear, but can you be a little bit quieter?
What, I can't talk?
Sure, you can talk, but just a little bit quieter. You want to talk to just me, okay?
Okay. No one's gonna listen anyways. Okay, I'll play.
Well, thank you. What's your name?
Stella, fella. Stella Goldman.
Well, that's a nice name, Stella. What are you doing down here in the park?
Just getting away from everybody. I can't stand the shelters, they're too noisy.
This is my partner, Officer Morgan.
Hello, Stella.
You're cute.
Do you live down here in the river, Stella?
I do. I hang out by the riverbed. There's water. I see fish sometimes.
Well, do you have any health conditions or you take any medication for anything?
No way! Medication's poison.
Stella, have you been eating okay?
Yeah, I eat the food people leave in the park. There's a church up the street I'll get breakfast from sometimes.
Okay, have you ever tried to find housing or shelter? We could help you with those things.
Oh yeah, no. The shelter wants me, but it's not for me.
Do you receive any type of money or financial assistance, SSI or anything like that?
I get checks. It goes to my sister's. Sometimes I forget to get it, but she'll bring it here sometimes.
Stella, is this where you want to be, here in the park? If it is, you need to be a little more quiet, okay? So that you're not bothering anyone else, all right?
Okay, I want to stay here. I'll be quiet, I'll share.
Okay, well, if you want to stay down here, I can give you some resources. You change your mind later. Would you like the phone number?
Okay.
There you go. Give us a call if you need us. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, Stella.
Bye.
Take
Have
care.
a good day.
Bye. This is my place.
Okay, so what do we have?
Obviously somebody who has some mental health issues based on her talking to herself and having some issues with her health. Doesn't know if she's taking care of herself very well. She's pretty dirty and looks like she's not eating well.
Mm-hmm. Based on what the RP saw, did we see the same thing when we got there?
No. She was much more relaxed. She had gotten to the point where she was kind of in a state of peace by the time the officers got there. She was agitated because the RP was there.
Mm-hmm. Based on what you guys saw, once the officers made contact, do you think she qualified for 5150?
Not from what she said. She was eating. She wasn't seeking shelter, and she didn't seem gravely disabled. She didn't seem suicidal. She didn't seem like she was trying to hurt herself or anybody else.
Right.
We could have asked a few more questions about if she felt like hurting herself or anybody else. Maybe ran her to see if she's a missing person or wanted somewhere, left the facility. So we could have done a little bit more to see if she needed to, maybe she wandered from a program or left a facility.
Okay.
And she's definitely seemed distracted to outside stimuli, so a lot of times you can talk to her about, just reality questions, time, place, locations, dates, different things in, recent history that see how
oriented she is.
Oriented she really is.
What do you guys think about pat-down search on this?
Each instance is different. I'm not going to say I do it every single time. It could be the officer is familiar with her, on previous occasions and contacts. So, is that a recipe for disaster sometimes when you have a lot of contact with somebody and then something goes sideways? Yeah, maybe, but each officer, it's at their discretion and their familiarity with the individual and the subject.
Yeah. I definitely agree. I think that this is a powder keg, and I think if we try to put our hands on her, we could make this thing a lot worse. But we also don't want to sacrifice officer safety. Did you guys feel uncomfortable with the way they managed that contact?
They asked good questions. It would have been nice, they gave her a pamphlet that said, give these, people a call. Well, how? It would be nice if they built a little more rapport and said, maybe we can link somebody up with you. Are you going to be here tomorrow? Maybe we could bring somebody here, or we can come back and try to further that, because they took the easy way out. Here's the paper, we're 98. Mm-hmm. So they might have been able to do a little bit more in building that relationship and keeping it going.
Yeah, I think follow-up's really important, especially since the issue we're dealing with here is, number one, let's get her some help, and number two, let's create a safer environment for the community by not having people like that in the park or living in the park, which is what she said she was doing. What did you think of the communication that the officers had with her?
I thought they did a good job. Our job is law enforcement. Mm-hmm. Are we social workers? Are we supposed to take on their whole problem? Where do we draw the line between our being law enforcement, enforcing what needed to be done? She didn't fit the 5150 criteria. Let's move on. We can notify social workers, let them come out and handle it.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, John. I think there's two ways to look at it, though. We're law enforcement, but we're also public service and public safety. And so underneath the umbrella of those definitions, I think we do have a bigger responsibility. And I think we need to carry things through, and we need to explore the nobility of what we do versus just this short-term solution. So
maybe look at it as, we can clear this call, and in an hour she's going to do it again. We're going to be back out here, or tomorrow it's going to happen again. And granted, it's a simple thing to clear for your call and have another officer respond, but the problem hasn't been fixed. So the long term, you need to try to figure out what we can do to fix this issue.
Is that our job?
That is our job. Do you agree, John?
I don't know. Social workers are out there, programs are out there to go out and assist people like this. Where do we draw the line?
Well, I think we have to collaborate with them. So we're the first point of contact. We need to create the environment where those other services can come in and be successful. And I think if we come in and we take that enforcement posture and we're too focused on that, I don't think we create the environment where the other services are going to be beneficial. But if we partner with them and we create an environment through collaboration where they can come in and do the social work, but we're the first point of contact, and we really need to set the stage.
Well, I think there's also times that each person can relate with each homeless person differently. A social worker may be able to come out, talk to somebody, and they may not listen to the social worker, but they may respect the uniform, and they may listen to us. Yeah. There's other people that don't respect the uniform, and they will listen to the social worker. And so with both groups going out there and working together, trying to fix the issue or solve whatever problem there is before us, we've got a bigger chance. It multiplies the possibility of a solution being done.
Yeah. I think also from an enforcement standpoint, John, I think that we're building relationships even with these people, and we never know when that's going to pay off. We may have some heinous crime that happened in the park, and she ended up being a witness to it. And we want to establish that rapport and relationship with her, that she has a trust-based relationship with us, so that when we do need to ask her about her observations, her witness statements, we're going to have a better time at getting those. And that doesn't have to always be our focus, but I think it's something we always have to keep in the back of our mind.
That makes sense.
One thing I noticed too right off was that she was very vague with her answers, but she did acknowledge that she got a check. Mm-hmm. What was the check for? You can ask pretty indirect questions and find out what the disability is. That by why does she receive a check? She's obviously not taking her meds. She said that as well. Mm-hmm. So she's not med compliant. She's not doing what she's supposed to be doing. Then you can go the 5150 that route as well.
Yeah. We definitely have to set the stage for future service to be delivered, and to solve that problem, it's going to be a long-term solution, not a short-term. So, good job.
Oftentimes with homeless-related calls, they're either minor violations or they might not even be a violation. And what is the goal of your call? A lot of times the call is to move the person along. A lot of times we don't have reason to detain the person, especially with someone who's mentally ill. If you're going to go hands-on with that person, then it could end up going sideways. And while you may have the legal right to do so, it can turn out to a bad situation. You're going to end up in a use of force. You're going to throw out your back. You're going to hurt your shoulder. And what did you really have in the beginning? If the objective was to get the person to move, And you can accomplish that through other ways, or just talking to the person. Then you've met your goals, you went home safe, and you're uninjured.
When it comes to the acronym, TACT, time, atmosphere, communication, and tone, that's real important. Time is when you're as a police officer, you have plenty of time. Don't rush what you're doing, get through it. Atmosphere, just know where you're at, know your surroundings. Communications, listen to what they have to say and let them talk. They may be listening to more than one voice. And then tone, your tone is going to dictate that whole scene.
If you think of law enforcement and personal space, an officer's personal space is greater than the average person. Well, someone who's mentally ill, their personal space is even greater than an officer's personal space. So if that can put that into perspective during your contacts, you'll help de-escalate it.
They will feel your frustration. They will feel, your anxiety. So the more comfortable that you feel with them, they will receive that feedback as well. I think it's really important to acknowledge the fact that, they are human beings and people just want to be treated with respect.
There's definitely an art to talking to someone who's in distress. Officers will sometimes walk up on that and see a person who's yelling or acting out, and they'll immediately body language, like get close to their weapons, get that stance where, they're ready for action. It's hard to negotiate with someone in that manner. If there's a way that you can still have all of that officer safety right there, but have a demeanor that's a little bit more relaxed, that you're still very ready for action if you need it. But having that relaxed demeanor, especially someone who may be dealing with a mental issue, it really sets an environment where you can start a negotiation.
An officer can observe if there's a potential mental illness. If they see a person talking to themselves, they might be looking off to the side when they're being talked to and they're not responding. That doesn't mean that they're being ignored or not respecting authority, but they may be having auditory hallucinations and distracted by those hallucinations. So it's very good for the officers to repeat the question.
People who are mentally ill have their beliefs. A lot of times it's described as talking to themselves. I like to say they're not talking to themselves, they're talking to someone. You just don't see them. And when you're approaching someone like that, it's like approaching anyone else who's engaged oftentimes in a heated conversation with someone else. How would you approach that?
Tone of voice is very important. Using a calm tone of voice so that the homeless individual may mirror that. So instead of using a command voice, using a voice that's, I'm here to help, what's going on, how can we support you? It looks like you're having a hard time. I'm not here to harm you. Making that very clear, because many times if they're delusional and have paranoid delusions, they may believe that they're going to be hurt by law enforcement.
We live along the banks of a river, so we see a lot of homeless along the river, and quite often they're fishing. And I'm a big fisherman myself, so what we'll do is I'll just go up and say, hey, how's the fishing? Start out with something like that. Give them some reason, something to start out with besides just, hey, are you homeless?
You do have to ask questions. How are you going to know if they're not a veteran unless you ask? Most officers show up, what are you doing here? When are you leaving? And those are really the two questions they ask. They don't ask, hey, are you a veteran? Are you from around here? What's your plan? Would you want some help? Those are some of the questions you can ask, and it may make that difference.
The use of video or audio recording of a contact with an individual, particularly a homeless individual, that is likely to react very negatively to a contact by law enforcement, is a very valuable tool. It shows exactly what happened when you approach that individual. It will counter any claims they make later on that they were abused in some way.
When you see that same individual over and over and over again, you see how he'll either get better or he'll start deteriorating health-wise. And so that's a good reason why the officers should never say, there's nothing I can do. There's always something we can do for individuals that are out there. And the more times you interact with them, that one time they may say, hey, this is the time I need the help, and they'll ask for it.
Enforcement is a good tool if used properly. Looking towards alternative sentencing, working with the community, working with the city attorney's office, or working with service providers in conjunction with your enforcement is what's going to get you the best results.
Give my buddy here too. Dylan, he's not as pretty.
How much beer do you have left in those cans?
Oh no, man, empty.
In this section, we'll hear from our experts on best approach thinking when working with the homeless and the resources your community provides. As many officers have discovered, because homeless individuals have different reasons for their situation, a team approach can offer the most comprehensive solution. Officers should be prepared for a much longer period of time before they may see results of their efforts, but those results are worth it and can leave lasting impressions on both the officer and the homeless individual involved.
Just help us out a little bit?
Hi.
Yeah. No, not him. Not him. No, here's why you need to help me. Because I'm going for the record. 13 hurricanes in one day. Right? So help me get into the Guinness Book.
Cool. Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.
I can't believe it. These guys are out here again. I cited them twice last week for open container. It just doesn't work.
I know you're frustrated, but you're just gonna have to start thinking outside the box in these kind of situations.
Yeah, help him out so he'll leave.
No,
this is my spot. I don't want no competition.
Oh man, you made her leave.
Well, you made me miss that guy because you were talking so long.
Guys, what are you doing back here? Oh, I've cited you here before.
Well, really, where else am we're going to live the high life? It's just like free money and cheap booze.
Where are you getting the cheap booze at?
Marco's, up the street.
Or Barney's, even cheaper.
Oh, is it? All right. Hey, you mind if I get a picture of you guys with your signs?
Yeah, cool. Hey,
I'll go get the camera out of the car.
Make sure to get my
Don't worry about it, I've got the department phone.
Get my buddy here too.
All right.
Yeah, well, he's not as pretty.
All right, you guys, you ready?
Hey.
Cheese. There you go. Thanks, guys.
Hey.
How much beer do you have left in those cans?
Oh, no, man. Empty.
Well, what do you think?
Well, I think it's time for a reality check for these guys. Or this is just going to continue happening. I think they need to know that we can make things go harder for them in court. Maybe even get bench probation on them where it makes them hard for them to come back here.
You mean work with the district attorney?
Exactly. And offer them sober living or jail time. It'll be their choice. We'll see. And I'm thinking about something else, too.
What are you thinking?
Well, I'm thinking about going to those stores that they buy from, and that picture I took of them, we'll show the store owners that picture and show them what's really going on out here. Maybe they can change, not sell to these guys.
Never thought of it that way.
Yeah, it helps the community. Mr. Mullen, thanks for taking a few minutes to talk to us.
Oh, no problem. Nothing like having two cops standing out in front of my liquor store to help my business, right?
We won't be long. We just want to talk to you about a couple of your regular customers. Do you recognize these guys?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're in here all the time.
Well, let's see, that's the problem.
I don't understand what problem.
Well, the problem is they come into your store, they buy their cheap alcohol, they go out and sit by the street, get drunk, and harass people. We've cited them multiple times.
Oh, I didn't know that. Honestly, this is the first I've heard of it. What did you want to talk to me about?
Well, we can't tell you how to run your store, but we would suggest that you don't sell these guys anymore. When they come into your store, they're obviously intoxicated, so it's within your right to say no. You know, another idea might be to take your cheaper alcohol and put it out of sight, or just not sell it at all. There's really only one kind of customer that buys that stuff.
I guess so.
And the community would appreciate it.
I'll do what I can. I'll look into it. My family lives in this town, so I do care what goes on here.
We appreciate that. And here, let me give you one of my cards. So if you have any questions or you need to contact us, feel free to call. Okay. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. You got it. It's my pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sorry I couldn't help you.
Well, that didn't go as well.
No, this store's not going to work with us. Maybe we can have ABC send them a compliance letter, and maybe they can throw some resources at it. As far as Mr. Mullen, he's willing to work with us, and I bet we can get the department to send him a letter of appreciation.
That's a good idea. Well, it's my turn to buy coffee.
Sounds good to me.
It's my turn to buy coffee.
Sounds good to me.
So we don't get that call every day, do we? Two guys on the corner with the, we'll work for food, give us some money. What do you guys think?
Well, at some point, enforcement obviously isn't going to work. I mean, you can cite everybody or give them a ticket for the open container till the cows come home, but at some point, on these type of chronic people, they don't care about the tickets. They don't care about, the fines. They don't care about the money that they have to pay because they don't have any money to pay them. So at some point, we have to look at other resources in order to solve that problem.
What do you think about the links that these two guys went to try to figure out what the underlying reasons were for why these guys were there?
I think they're trying to track it back to the source. Where's the alcohol coming from? They're hitting the same spot every day. I mean, it makes sense to go there, try to at least build a rapport with that business and say, hey, this is the 5th time today we've been out on these guys. They're getting their alcohol from you. We need some help. I think it's a great idea.
What are some of the factors that go into building that kind of cooperative relationship with that first store owner? What did we see these guys doing?
Well, I think those guys are doing what they do because there's no reason for them to change. I mean, the courts don't, we write the tickets numerous times and the courts don't back us up. So they continue to do what they do. And I mean, although they did a good job in contacting the stores, why is it the business owner's fault for selling the alcohol? He's trying to make it's his business. He's trying to make a living. Absolutely. So we start penalizing the stores because the courts and the laws aren't backing up what we're trying to do.
Mm-hmm. But we saw this guy, he's a stakeholder. He lives in the community. He's got family in the community. I don't think he wants that happening in his community either. I don't think he wants his mom or his sister getting accosted by these two drunks for money so they can buy cheap alcohol at his store. So we need to tap into the fact that these people are members of this community too. I'll tell you what I liked. I liked the fact that they were very polite and they said, we'll only be a few minutes because he was apprehensive about cops being to the front of his store. And then I really liked the idea that he followed up with his card. He kind of put it out there and said, hey, get a hold of me if you need anything, if there's anything I can do. That kind of olive branch, I think, goes a long way. Now, what about the second store owner? We didn't really get to see much of that, but it didn't look like it went as well.
Well, maybe you can look at it as there's a problem, and they're part of the problem, but they can also be part of the solution. And sometimes if you can engage somebody and have them be part of the solution, they're more willing to be helpful rather than part of the problem for the little gain that they might get. So you can offer it up to them, but ultimately if the business wants to continue to sell, that's on them unless there's some other avenue that you want to follow.
Yeah, it's about managing our own authority and understanding our limitations. I agree. And I agree with you, John. I mean, it's a tough sell to say this is your responsibility, but I think the way we have to start looking at our social problems today is that we're going to solve these things collaboratively as a team, as a group of people that are a part of this community, which he is. He's part of the business community and he may or may not be part of this residential community. We have to stop looking at things like that's my job or that's not my job, because we don't treat each other like that, right? We try to handle our beat. We try to do things that are going to be long-term solutions so our partners don't have to pick it up. We need to expand that picture and start making it look more globally. And I think it is not unreasonable to ask the store owner to partner with us. It may not be his obligation, but I think that the more we rely on them to partner with us, to come alongside with us, I think sooner or later we'll win them over one at a time.
Well, what would be wrong with just asking them to leave? Mm-hmm. Why don't you leave this area?
Well, I think that they'd already done that. And that in their initial contact, they said, what are you guys doing back here? What about using collaboration and enforcement as a tool by maybe either contacting BNP regarding the liquor stores, or maybe even make an appointment and go talk to the DA, the filing DA or the deputy DA that's going to be in charge of this and saying, look, we need a little bit more teeth. Show them the pictures. Say, I've written this guy 12 tickets in the last 4 months, and we haven't got the filings that we need. We haven't got the penalties that we need. I need you guys to partner with me. I think that it's not beyond our ability to start contacting the other elements of the system and asking for their collaboration as well, which kind of suits your goal, which is not putting everything on the store owner, right, John? We can start tapping some of the other resources within the system and getting some collaboration there.
He did mention that if they could work with the courts to get a bench probation, mm-hmm. and I know sometimes you can use your city attorney to prosecute some of the municipal codes that you might have, and get that city attorney to request that because possibly the public defender is, or the DA is too quick to dump the cases for, interest of justice or whatever, get your city attorney to hand carry those to court and say, look, this person is a problem. He's got 12 of these citations in the same spot. We need a resolution on this. So at least let's get, maybe a stay away order, part of the probation or something of the sort.
Okay. So when we look at this second storekeeper, it's not really that cooperative. What are some of the things that we could probably do from an enforcement standpoint to maybe get this person to be more cooperative down the road?
You could get with ABC and maybe do a check of the establishment, see if they're following all their ABC protocols and they're within their license parameters. See if the store is functioning as it should under the parameters ABC.
Okay. What about selling alcohol to intoxicated people?
Documentation. You gotta get them doing it.
Right. We need to tap into some of our in-house stakeholders by going over to planning or going over to the city and asking them to look into this problem too. And some communities actually have ordinances that they've written into their municipal codes that say that these store owners, they need to be good community members and their business can't be contributing to a criminal element. So we may or may not have that, but we could look into something like that as a long-term solution as well. All right, great.
The panhandling video was actually inspired by an encounter that I had with two very chronic homeless individuals that have been in San Luis Obispo for at least a decade. And ultimately, through the court system and working with the justice system, we were able to convince Ben to get into a sober living home. And never in a million years would I thought we would have been able to achieve that. And those two individuals remarkably have been in sober living facilities for the last year, which is a win.
If you're dealing with someone on the same corner over and over and over, maybe you need to get with your city attorney, your district attorney, formulate a plan and why it's such a problem, and you've got to be able to convey that message. And an alternative sentencing maybe, rather than jail time, because he's going to come out and go back to the same place, maybe it's just a simple court order not to be in that same location.
One of the tools that officers can use under the California Business and Professional Code section 25602, it provides that it is a misdemeanor for an establishment to knowingly sell alcohol to a confirmed alcoholic when they come into their shop. That can be a hammer that you can use to get their cooperation.
We've got to use a problem-solving perspective to really make a difference. We've got to expand our perspective beyond one incident and think about the next 5 or 10 or 15 incidents that this particular individual is likely to be involved in, and what we can do in collaborating with other people to not only reduce the chance of this individual habitually reoffending, but also others as well.
Timing is a big issue, helping the people move forward. You have to be persistent. You have to kind of keep the motivation going, keep contact with the people, and then knowing when the moment's right or seeing that they're starting to open up a bit, be open for that. If you've seen them like every day, or there's been a radio call every day on this person and they've been resistant every day, and now today they seem a little bit different. They might be a little bit open. Take advantage of that open door and go ahead and push through it and try and help them make something happen in their life.
As police officers, one of the things you should really encourage, and this is where the establishment of the rapport is really crucial, is that, individuals sometimes need the motivation. So if they see that you care and you're following up with them, it's really crucial for that establishment of the rapport and really just continuing on like, oh, okay, did you go to this program? Did you go to this soup kitchen? Did you go to this meal program? And just the fact that somebody is showing that they care eventually helps them and encourages them to move on.
When dealing with homeless, and there are successes, officers need to know about it, because sometimes this takes a very long time and people fall out. People fall out of rehab, people fall out of shelters, and officers get discouraged and they think that the system's not working. But when it does work and they are successful, the officers need to know, and that'll just motivate them to try harder or just as hard the next time. The best way to close the loop is to stay in contact with that social service agency, to stay in contact with that rehab. They're going to keep you informed as to the person's progress, And if the person does fall out, it's going to afford you the opportunity to catch them and intervene as soon as possible and help them get back. Lastly, it's going to build that relationship because you may need that rehab the next time.
I often refer to services as a tripod effect. And when I say a tripod effect, you have your officer, you have your client, and then you have your service provider. Without one of them, the whole snapshot just falls apart.
Whether your agency is large or small, it all starts with you. And you need to go out there and make that contact and make a friend. Make a friend on the social service side, because that person's going to be able to help you.
What you do say today will have an impact tomorrow. If you tell a person, hey, I'll be back tomorrow, I'll have a bus pass, or I'll have some pamphlets for you for substance abuse or mental health, and you come back with the next day, that goes a long way because you kept your word. If you tell them, hey, I'll be back tomorrow, I'm going to arrest you if you're here, and you show up tomorrow and you don't arrest them, there goes your credibility.
There's different ways of building rapport and relationship with homeless individuals. Definitely having water, sometimes having some hygiene kits, sometimes even having socks for them. One of the things that's really crucial is the fact that you're showing that you care.
If you start off in a negative way and you create a bad first impression, it is just not going to go well, not only for you, but for most police officers that come in and try to make contact. It's going to make their work doubly hard to try and build that rapport to get the person in a state they're ready to get off the street.
The younger homeless are kind of the ones I think that officers probably tend to overlook. And even though you may make an arrest on them and get them over to the jail, you know, with the recent changes in the jails and the populations, most of you know as well as I do that before you can write your paperwork, they're going to be out of jail. So why not offer them some of those services, turn them over to an outreach department, a social worker that can get them to a recovery center, get them to maybe an in-house long-term care facility to resolve those issues and help those guys find their way into an educational system, into work that can get them off the streets, instead of just returning them over and over again back to the jail. You give them speech motivation by going out and saying, hey, you can make it, you can do this. Keep reminding them over and over again every time you see them, instead of writing them up or giving them citations or whatever. Say, hey, did you make this appointment? Good for you, good job.
As you work with the homeless, you need to document what you're doing with that person so that you can keep track of it, or if someone else crosses paths with that homeless person, you can kind of keep an idea of what's going on. For example, if they're having mental issues, they're on medication for an issue, and they're willing that day to have you help them get their meds straightened out. So if you do a trip to the hospital with them and they can get their meds straightened out or get back on their meds, if there's a documentation trail of that, the next service provider or someone who has access to those systems can see that, oh, okay, now I know what we're dealing with. This is the same situation someone else has dealt with before. Okay, let's see, now you can have a more educated conversation with that person and take some previous knowledge to help move them to a different level.
You know, another issue that we quite often have in homelessness is whole families with one person that's addicted. Say, you know, the grandmother's addicted, but she's the one with the income, and it's taken down the whole family. If you find a situation like this that has one addicted person that's basically taking a whole family down with them, be sure that you tell your social worker that you're working with or your outreach team that that person that you're dealing with has got a family that counts on them.
I can't value enough the impact of a commanding officer or the chief or upper level supervision of a department. They set the tone. They're the ones that set the expectations and the focus of what your department is, and the value of them having a buy-in or an interest in addressing these issues, which are just getting larger and larger each year. That way the officers from the top all the way to the very bottom know what the expectations of your department is on these issues and how our department is going to handle these issues.
There are a surprising number of resources available for assisting homeless individuals, and the services they offer are just as varied as the homeless population they serve. It's in the officer's best interest to build a list of those resources and know what they offer so you can connect your homeless contacts with the correct services. Some departments may already have these lists available for you. But if they don't, make your own connections and share your information with fellow officers. Our experts will look at best practices when working with resources and things to consider when assisting homeless individuals.
No, man, keep rolling. Look at this mess.
Frank, we can't keep rolling by this camp. Look how big it's getting.
So what do you suggest we do about it? I mean, we're not miracle workers.
No, but if we don't do something about it, Sarge is going to be all over us.
Man, I tell you what, I'll get the loudspeaker, I'll yell something like, move it along, folks. Man, I mean, they'll eventually leave.
Yeah, that'll last for about an hour, and then they'll move all this crap to other parts in our division, and then we'll have to deal with it later.
I mean, you and I both know that this is a never-ending battle. I mean, what do you suggest we do about it? I mean, our hands are tied.
There are some resources within the community. We should reach out to them.
That sounds like a lot of work. Are you sure about this?
No, but some of these people might need our help, and we're here to help them.
All right, man. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll make some of the calls to some of the local service providers. I mean, I am going to get a medal for this, right?
Frank, you don't need a medal. You're already a nice guy.
So why should we intervene on this?
You got health and safety issues. I mean, the community. You got the illegal lodging. I mean, it's an eyesore in the community. People are probably going by there and in that area and walking or whatever, and they're seeing all this, and so you're going to get RPs calling in about that all the time.
How long is it going to take to solve this, Brent?
Oh, weeks, months. Yeah. I mean, it would be continually checking on it to make sure that once you get the old crew out, the new crew's kind of come in, and
right.
So you got to stay on it. I mean, it's a lot of work.
Is there, you say solve, in what way? Fix this little problem under this bridge, they'll move to another bridge, fix it for this one individual, there's another individual to take their spot over. It's not going to get solved in that way.
Yeah, I think society as a whole recognizes that this is a problem that won't go away anytime soon, probably not in our lifetimes, but it still doesn't mean it's okay for us to turn a blind eye to it. And I think that when we started talking about building rapport and establishing relationships with people, some of these people living out here are some of those people. We need to build relationships with our service providers, with our churches, with our other nonprofits that are also going to help us resolve this issue or at least displace it. But we also need to start building relationships with these people because they may refuse services initially. And if we don't build the right relationship with them, we'll never get them to accept the help. Some of these people can be turned. Would you not agree?
Maybe.
Okay.
But also by us going out there and we solve the problem by moving them, some of them will refuse services and just leave. After you get that area cleaned up, whose responsibility is it to maintain it, to keep people from coming back? Because we all know that once we clean the area up, we go to the next problem area, people come right back. Is that again on us?
What do you think?
Where are the other services?
What kind of solutions would you think could apply to this, John?
Well, mental health, but they really don't come out to the field and contact people under the bridge.
So then it's whose responsibility?
Back on us.
Yeah. And I think follow-up's a big piece, and I think we're going to see this with a lot of the homeless situations that we're dealing with, is that we need to be diligent. We need to be making sure that this doesn't start to evolve into a bigger problem again. And it comes down to nobility. It comes down to how we view our job, whether it's through that enforcement lens or through it's a public safety lens. And if our job, as we see it, is through a public safety lens and a service lens, then we need to be servicing these people, because by helping them, we're going to help the larger community. Because people don't want to jog past that. They're going to stop jogging past that. People don't want that in their community. So rather than treating these people like they're the problem, we need to find solutions for them so that we can serve our whole community. Who might be some other responsible parties or stakeholders that we want to get involved in that particular context?
Caltrans or, public works with the city, maybe, depending on, traffic engineering, maybe, something like that. They have some kind of stake in that development and what the future plans of that area are.
Okay. What are some other locations that we might have to address through different stakeholders? What are some ideas?
You could have an officer decide that that's his project, his problem-oriented policing project, or he wants to find a solution to that specific issue. Maybe that officer with another officer, some kind of team work that they do on every time they're on shift, they can go out there and hit the area.
Yeah, so that's going to require that follow-up that I think is essential, right, Jason?
Right.
Yeah. I do think it's important that someone takes some ownership, and then they don't have to manage that problem all by themselves. I mean, one of you guys can take a leadership role and start leveraging some of our departmental resources and our outside resources and coordinating something to be done if we have a problem like this in our city. But I think we're going to have to be able to rely on some person to take some measure of ownership. So, with a group this large, is it possible that we're going to be able to use the same tool on every single one of them?
No,
not likely.
So we're probably going to have to utilize different tools on different individuals within this group. So some might get some enforcement. Let's say you've got a parolee at large in the group. He's going to go, or she's going to go, but other people are going to have services offered to them, right? So
I think
we need
initially,
to be flexible.
you'll know. You'll go through, sort through the crowd, and you start running checks on people, figure out people on probation. Are they drug addicts under the bridge? Do they have that kind of help? You start checking history on people, and you'll know who's going to cooperate and who's not going to cooperate. And maybe you decide not to cite initially, and you're like, hey, we have resources to offer you guys. And you hand out pamphlets, give them some info. You come back a week later, and you see who's still there, and is the shop grown? And okay, now we're going to take some enforcement action for the people that haven't learned, or the people that don't want to do the work. You have the can-nots, the have-nots, and the will-nots.
Yeah.
And you got to figure out in the crowd who's who. And once you do that, then you can start, okay, enforcement here, and we can offer services to these people here.
Yeah, that's a really balanced approach, Dave. I like that.
Before you do enforcement, is it on us again to make sure those resources are available? So is there a place for that person to go to? If there is not, are we doing enforcement still?
Well, I think we have to identify the people that enforcement is the option that works best for them. And that's going to be a case by case. Some people if you've got a $500 warrant, maybe enforcement's not the right option for you. But if you've got a no bail, or if you're a 290 registrant, or there's some other issues at play that we can bring from an enforcement perspective to leverage onto this situation, I think we need to keep those options open. I think the big picture is this is a big problem, and it's going to require a lot of resources, and it's going to come down to someone taking some ownership. So I look forward to the next time we run into one of these things, someone here stepping up and saying, I'm going to lead this and manage this problem. So, yeah, John?
When you do assume that liability and you say you're going to take that responsibility on, are we getting the backing? Because radio calls still come for other issues, and we're going to spend a lot of time dealing with this.
Yeah.
It's not something that we're going to fix in a day or a couple hours, so it's going to take me to go out there and be out there for a few days.
Yeah.
And the calls do not stop coming, so again.
Well, you have my support, John, and we're going to work with you to resolve the problem, because the organization and the department sees this as a problem. And so if we can get the buy-in from you, you're going to get it from us.
I think John just volunteered to be the person that handles the problem.
Yeah. Someone go out and find an encampment tonight for John.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, John. All right, very good.
For the large scenarios, you may come across the large encampments where there's a lot going on, and it can seem overwhelming with the animals, and there might be a baby carriage and clearly like a vet type situation, and then another person's kind of yelling and talking to themselves. It can be very overwhelming. That's a lot going on there. What I can say is just take a breath, go ahead and get out of the car and just start talking to people, and think of it as let's just start a conversation with these people and see where it can go from there. So you're kind of doing a triage and seeing exactly what you have. And you may not be ready that day to address all the issues that are there, but it can kind of start you with a game plan and outline of how you can work through that scenario over a period of time and address all of the issues that are going on there.
If you continue to drive by, the problem's just going to grow. It's going to grow, and the bigger it gets, the harder it's going to be to clean up. And the more resources you're going to need. The sooner you impact it, the sooner it goes away.
Sometimes individuals are sleeping outside because they need more help to access resources. You know, an officer can consider whether it makes sense to call around for that individual to find appropriate resources.
You know, when you're dealing with homeless encampments and homeless people, they're not the very cleanest people around, so it's very important that officers protect themselves. And I've been in the situation at times when I'll be putting gloves on before I go talk to somebody, and they'll say, well, why are you putting gloves on? You afraid you're going to catch something from me? And my response to them is that you don't know what I have, so I'm just trying to protect you too. So you kind of do a lighter stance on what the whole issue is to make them feel more at ease while you're putting gloves on.
When we go out to do a targeted approach to a group of encampment individuals, we come with the SPCA hand in hand, where they will make sure that the pets are being treated properly, that they're being fed, and offer services to them.
In doing cleanups on homeless encampments or people that are simply arrested and their goods are left at the site where they were arrested from, the police department has an obligation to secure all of those belongings and to keep them for a period of at least 90 days prior to any kind of disposal of those. Officers need to be aware of the fact that what looks like absolute junk, it may be very valuable to that individual that they just removed it from. It's one of the hotspots for ACLU and other groups to sue for, and it can be very expensive.
The Department of Public Works will come out with a crew and clean it up. You just have to take pictures and document everything that was taken. They'll come, take it, and they'll store it for the 90 days. And you get with the homeless that were there and let them know what the process is to pick up their property from that location.
These social services have different roles, and they accept different people, and you need to know that, so that you're not just taking the person or referring the person to the wrong place, and you're going to have to deal with them again tomorrow. There's some really simple ones. If the person's a vet, you refer them to the VA. You know, if the person's an addict, then you're obviously going to refer them to rehab. But you really need to get to know your resources in your community and what clients do and do they not accept.
Part of the decision is not necessarily what we think they should do, but it's what do they want to do to end their homelessness, and what we have to offer, how does that fit together for that individual?
All nonprofits and organizations that provide services have monthly meetings, quarterly meetings, and to have law enforcement be represented at each of those meetings, that's a way that you're definitely going to be able to highlight the resources and identify the resources that will meet the need.
You hand a pamphlet out and you run to that person again, hey, that number you gave me was wrong, or that pamphlet, they're no longer there. You do have to go through and inventory your material to make sure it's current.
If you end up contacting a family in the middle of the night, that's not the time to look for resources. You need to have that with you, and you need to have that thought of before you contact them. It's like everything we do in law enforcement. We prepare for the worst. Well, you may contact a 6-month-old baby. That's a pretty bad situation, and you need to be prepared and what you're going to do with it. And if it's not in place, work with your department, your community to put that in place.
You know, as officers go out there and start brainstorming or trying to find resources and think outside the box of ways that they can help this homeless situation, when they learn something, I just so encourage them sharing that with their teammates, with their other squad members. Maybe do a little lineup training on, I found a couple of resources that are willing to come out and help us, the next day with something. It's this service provider or this service provider. Or if they start to dig a little bit deeper and gain some information there, I highly encourage them sharing that with all the other officers.
The National Alliance to End Homelessness is based out of Washington, D.C. It is an excellent resource for officers or any social service provider to look up.
Faith-based centers offer a lot. Some of our clients are looking to get back on a faith-based journey, And when you have those resources at hand, or you have the connections of other partnerships in the faith-based community, they go a long way. You have many churches, you have many faith-based centers that will lend to have clients stay overnight, to have a place, a warm bed to sleep in. It could be a bench, it could be a bunk, depending on what it is that they have at their churches or at their centers and their halls. That's an amazing resource for cadets or officers to have.
It's very important that, that we're not in this alone. It's not just us. There's a whole wealth of service providers and information that's out there. Even if you have a very, very small city or community, there's the faith-based, the churches. A lot of them want to help. So keep your eyes open for those kind of situations and people that can help.
Can I have your name? No, that's none of your business. I'm not breaking any laws. Can't we just talk about it? No.
In this section, we'll take a close look at the legal considerations when dealing with homeless individuals. We'll also discuss the potential liabilities officers may be subject to if there is an overreaction to calls involving the homeless. Although many of these calls do not require an officer to go hands-on, an overbearing approach or tone can quickly cause a contact to go physical. And once an encounter goes physical, the officer may have to explain in court why the use of that physical force was necessary. And while a homeless individual may already be overly excited or acting out when officers arrive, with officer safety being maintained, it's best to use common sense and the techniques learned in this video to avoid any potential legal liabilities.
It's all fun and games. Thing you need. I want to see you bleed. Come to the jungle. It's all fun and games. We've got everything you need, baby. Just say please. Welcome to the jungle. Knees. The jungle. Welcome to the jungle, baby. Welcome to the jungle. We take it day by day. Everywhere you want to bleed, but it's the price you pay, cause we're the jungle. Welcome to the jungle. Jungle. If you want, you're gonna bleed. I see you in his window. I stand back down and walk away. Don't bother trying to explain, Angel. I know exactly what goes on.
Hello, sir. Can we talk to you for a minute?
Why? You don't have anything better to do?
As a matter of fact, we do. We were called out here on a disturbance call.
Disturbance? I'm the disturbance. With all this noise out here that the kids are making.
We received a complaint about your loud singing. And this is a public park, and you can use it just as much as anyone else. But you still have to be respectful of the rest of the people that are using the park.
They just don't appreciate good music. I know my rights.
Sure you do. And you can exercise them as long as they don't infringe on the rights of others or violate any law. Can I have your name?
No, that's none of your business. I'm not breaking any laws. Anything else, officers?
We're only here because of the complaint. Can't we just talk about it?
No. You detaining me?
So, what do we have?
You have a person who's under the influence who needed to go to jail.
Maybe. What objective symptoms did you see, John?
His eyes.
Yeah? What were his pupils?
They were a little bit blown. They were large.
They look good to me. Were they reactive?
Couldn't really tell, but there should have been more of a investigation into him being a little bit under the influence.
Okay. So how would we go about that?
Just like they did. Contact him and then look for the signs of the person being under the influence, and I would have keyed in on that. He needed to leave.
Let's say we don't have any objective symptoms. After a further exploration, we don't see any symptomology that supports that assumption that he's under the influence. Then what?
Well, this is a standard call that we would handle, almost every day, where you have, an RP that would call because they don't like the noise that a specific person is making in a public, place, where he does have some First Amendment rights to making a certain amount of noise, depending on the type of noise and how loud it is. Whereas the children are just making almost as much, if not more noise, screaming and yelling and playing. So you got to balance what do we really have here? We have a guy who's listening to his iPod, who's singing really loud. Granted, the mother didn't like the noise he was making, but does he have a right to make that noise? I think he does. He's not cursing, he's not threatening, he's not making any gestures towards the children. So what do you really have? You can maybe be polite, and hopefully your politeness gets him to maybe cooperate a little bit with the amount of noise he's making, but you really don't have a crime, I think.
So do we have a detention or a consensual encounter?
More consensual. I'd say it's more consensual.
Okay. What defines that?
You've got a complaint, and that complaint is based on something that's not reasonable. So you're contacting them.
It's tough.
Yeah, you're contacting them based upon that complaint. You could maybe detain him based upon the investigation of, is he under the influence or something, but it's real tenuous. It's if he got up and decided to walk off, you're going to use force to keep him there? No.
Wasn't that our goal?
Yes.
We want him to leave.
Yeah.
I think you're just trying to build a rapport. If you're really going to want to push, hey, who are you? I want to run this guy, see what he's all about, and you don't have the 11.5, he's not high, then you build a rapport.
Yeah.
Or you just kind of, hey, man, I totally agree with you. The kids are being real loud, but I just want to talk to you about
doing that.
They tried to redirect him because he was giving them kind of stonewall answers, throwing out that he knows his rights, that am I being detained? Like he obviously has the wherewithal to ask those types of questions because he's probably been in that situation before, or he knows, he's done some research, so he knows what the police can and can't do in those situations.
Or he's trying to put himself in these situations. So. Right. Could they have done a better job at building rapport like Dave's talking about?
I think so.
Yeah. What are some of the things they could have done to do that?
Simple questions. Even ask him what he was listening to. Ask him, is he from around there? Just non-intrusive questions that maybe are a little bit light. They're more light than the probatory questions.
Right.
Put him at ease.
Yeah.
Make him feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And that's when they start talking and like, okay, hey, my name's Bob, and I live around the corner.
Yeah, get down to his level.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Also, we didn't know if he might have even had a kid there.
Yeah.
On the other end.
If the same activity was taking place in some place other than a park with the kids, would it be offensive? Would it be a problem? If he was on a beach by himself, would it be a problem then? Probably not. So the issue, I think, lies with maybe the RP. So you contact her and explain, this isn't a crime or this isn't a major issue. But then, where everyone else is saying build that rapport, you can explain that to the subject and say, hey, look, this is the situation we're in. Can you do us a favor? And sometimes when they feel that they're helping you, whether they're going to pull the, Constitution book out or whatever, say, hey, I understand you could be here. I get that. But can you do us a favor and maybe the kids a favor and just move down other side of the park? Something simple.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the idea of building rapport both with the subject that we're making contact with and the reporting parties, the other stakeholders in the park, is essential. And I don't think we saw that here. But the other thing, too, is if we are going to walk away, because we have to recognize where our authority has limitations, we need to follow up with that RP and explain why we're walking away. And that's another piece we didn't see, but it's essential because that's going to kind of erode away from the confidence that our community has in us if we're just walking away from these things, which we may be obligated to do.
Sometimes we can't do anything.
Yeah, that's a reality. What about, and this is kind of a long shot, what about just pulling up the 290 registrant website and just kind of scanning through some photographs while you're in the parking lot to see if you recognize this guy?
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
And you can always come back to contact him once you find out that information, because now you have a legitimate reason to contact him.
Now it's a detention.
Right, now it's a detention. But if at the time, you'd have to go back to your car and do that.
Yeah. So let's dive a little bit deeper into the idea of Constitution. Where in this scenario do you think the division is between a consensual encounter and a detention?
When we came to the call, these officers came to the call, initially we have a complaint of unreasonable noise or loud noise, which could, depending on the Muni Code of the city that we're in, could be a violation of something. But if we found that the complaint was unreasonable based on the RP statements and that he wasn't making anything in violation of the law, then obviously it's a consensual encounter, and then now it's not under detention anymore, and it's fluid. So unfortunately in our job, it's always fluid, it's always moving. So at some point, if you don't have any legal basis to keep someone there for a crime, which is what we enforce, then it's no longer a detention. The detention has to stop. So once you determine that, oh, there's nothing here, then the detention needs to stop and it moves into something else.
Yeah. So calls like this, they can be frustrating for us, can't they?
Oh, very.
Yeah. How do we manage our own frustration levels and our own emotional intelligence so that we can detach enough that we don't expose ourselves to unnecessary liability?
It's not personal. Don't take it personally. You kind of have to go with what you've got.
Yeah.
Look at the bigger picture. Really, what is the purpose? As you're saying, don't take it personally, but look at the bigger picture. Realistically, what are we trying to solve, and why are we there, and how can we fix the situation?
Yeah.
And the same laws we're upholding, he's using, and we should see it that way. It's not that we should be mad at him for using the same laws we're upholding. I mean, it's every American's right, to use the Constitution. It's there for a purpose.
Right.
You can't be mad at the Constitution because it protects everybody.
We also have our partner too, so we need to be kind of watching each other and maybe have the strength to kind of pull our partner back if they start moving in the wrong direction, right? Okay, great. All right, so let's be safe out there, all right?
During that scenario when the guy was singing and really goading the officers about he had rights and things, the officers have to realize they do have rights, and he's in the park, and he was very right. The kids were making just as much noise as he was, but they have to realize there are role models out there, and the kids in the park are watching what the officers do. And they did the right thing by staying calm and not being drawn in by this guy's anger. The gentleman, as we'll call him a gentleman, wanted to bait the officers into some kind of confrontation, and the officers did a fantastic job and not taking the bait by this individual and doing the right thing by just talking to him.
When officers are approaching a homeless individual or a traveler or somebody that may appear to be homeless, and that individual is being resistive in any way, verbally trying to ring their chimes, trying to aggravate the situation, the officer needs to recognize under the law that being verbal, being insulting to the officer, disturbing the peace of the officer, which is not a crime, an officer's peace cannot be disturbed under the law, that they need to know when to walk away. They need to know that, all right, I'm irritated, I want to do something with this guy, but to keep myself out of a lawsuit and out of the courtroom, I need to just back up.
Do not let these individuals, or any individual for that matter, pull you in emotionally. That's when you make bad decisions.
A lot of times we don't have a crime. And a lot of times as officers, we want to help, and we want to help the person calling. But sometimes help is also education, educating the person who's calling as to other people's rights too, not just theirs.
Officers can violate the Fourth Amendment by obviously searching backpacks or other areas that the person has with them without getting consent to do so, or without having a search warrant to search that, or search it subject to a lawful arrest. If they go into a backpack without that kind of, any one of those three items, they have violated the Fourth Amendment.
We have what's called PC4. You don't have to arrest or cite for everything. If you're going to cite somebody for sleeping in their car and you offer no alternative, then I can see that so you having an issue. But if you tell them, hey, if I catch you here again, I already told you there's some places you can go. But if you're here again, I'll cite you. And if you document that, you don't have an issue or you don't have a worry. But if you just cite, and offer no resource, then you can have potential litigation issues.
5150 is a tool. It's not a mechanism to solve a complaint. It's there, and the 5150 is used to help the person who's in crisis. It's not there to solve someone's complaint of someone being noisy or obnoxious.
Being homeless is not really a crime. Some individuals, as you encounter them, it may seem that they want to be on the streets. And again, there's just different reasons why they became homeless. It just means that you have to build a little bit more of a different relationship and rapport.
Dealing with Police enforcement issues within the homeless community can be very dicey. You need to be very careful on how you do it. You can't just go up and throw someone's belongings away. You can't just say, you got to go or you're going to be arrested right now. You have to be very careful that you're offering some services if you can, but if you just go in and start throwing their belongings away because to you it looks like trash, to them it could be a family heirloom. But if you do that, you run into the risk that you can very possibly be sued.
Anytime you can use video, multimedia of any kind, it does eliminate misunderstandings. That goes all the way from having video on you when you're talking to homeless in the field to just taking pictures of their stuff.
Officers, on occasion, end up violating things like right against unlawful search and seizure under the Fourth Amendment without even realizing that they are doing that. The law is very specific, for instance, on pat-down searches for weapons, that there has to be some articulable reason to believe that that person is armed or may be armed or a danger to that officer. Clearly, an officer is going to want to go home at the end of the day, and they want to take into consideration their safety over all else, but they need to know that articulable reason to actually do a pat-down search to determine whether this person has weapons.
Homeless individuals who receive citations for violating quality of life ordinances will develop criminal records and fines they often can't afford to pay. This can make it more difficult for them to access shelter, housing, employment, which is of course critical, and benefits.
Officers that encourage a person or to maybe just leave the area, that may be a violation of civil rights, freedom of travel, et cetera, et cetera. Also, if they offer to transport this individual, offer it being used rather loosely, and remove the person to the city limits or outside the county, they have committed a kidnapping if it's not with the consent of that individual.
There may be what's been called urban campers, a young generation of people that just want to get out there and be on the streets. They, of course, in their minds view it as something that's just going to be temporary, and then they're going to be able to go back to their college or their community. But sometimes very horrible things happen to them when they're out in the street. They're victims or they get caught up in a crime, and they're never able to get back.
Cycling homeless individuals through the criminal justice system also costs taxpayers quite a bit of money in terms of law enforcement and judicial resources. Multiple studies have shown that it can be more cost effective to house somebody in a shelter or even in permanent supportive housing as opposed to housing them in jail.
Community feels the need to help people, or they feel that this person should not be there, not in my backyard, the NIMBY syndrome, and they don't want them there. They don't want them in their public places. They don't want them in their businesses. They don't want them in their parks. It's not illegal. And as officers, we have to tell the community that sometimes. And you've got to let them know that it's not illegal for this person to be homeless. It's not illegal for this person to be in the park. Just because someone's homeless doesn't mean we can send them away, doesn't mean we can hospitalize them. They have the same rights as you and I.
We hope you have enjoyed this program, Homelessness and Policing, a Collaborative Approach. As you have seen, by taking just a little more time with these types of calls, knowing the resources available, and by raising your own awareness of homelessness in your community, you can become much more effective in handling calls for service dealing with homeless individuals. We encourage you to view the final thoughts section of this program for closing comments from our subject matter experts. For Post, I'm Mark Bailey. Thanks for watching. This course is designed to be facilitated in a group setting. Before conducting a group training session, you should review and become familiar with the material in this program. Open and print the facilitator guide and go through the program yourself before putting the course on for others. As the facilitator, your job is to engage your students in constructive, free-flowing discussion on the key learning points of this training topic. Use the tools provided in this program to stimulate critical thinking and situational awareness in the group by viewing the scenarios, expert interviews, and discussion videos. Questions and activities are provided to promote group interaction and discussion on the training topic. Customize the learning experience by applying your agency policy and procedures to the training concepts. Segments in this program accommodate shorter training periods, such as during roll call training sessions. Track your students' progress through the entire program. As the facilitator, you need to know that your students have gone through the material and sufficiently mastered the learning objectives. Once the students have successfully completed the program, submit your training roster to post for CPT credit. Following this plan will help to create an environment for the debate of ideas, sharing of wisdom based on experience, and encourage a greater understanding of local policies and procedures. We wish you and your agency all the best in successfully implementing this program. This course is designed to be facilitated in a group setting. However, when that is not possible, here are some instructions for getting the most out of this training program so that you may receive continuing professional training or CPT credit. Obtain permission from your agency trainer or supervisor to view the course for training credit, and let them know you will be viewing the program. This will give them some time to review the course themselves and be prepared to discuss it with you later on. Open and print the student study guide so that you can take notes and fill out responses to the questions and activities. Think about how the training concepts presented apply to your agency policy and procedures. You may view the scenarios, expert interviews, and discussion videos several times to assist you in providing responses. Keep track of your progress as you complete the segments in this course. When you have finished the entire program, inform the trainer that you would like to review the course with them. Send them your completed student study guide prior to meetings so that they have had a chance to review your responses. Scheduling a face-to-face meeting with your trainer is the best way to review your work on the course. If this is not possible, arrange a phone call meeting. But in either case, allow time to review and discuss your responses. Your supervisor or trainer may require additional work or feedback from you before giving CPT credit. They may want to evaluate your understanding of how the training points relate to your agency policy, for instance. It is their discretion in determining whether you have adequately completed the course. Following these instructions will give you the best opportunity not only to receive CPT credit, but to grasp the training concepts, benefit from the experience of others, and apply the training and experience to your local policy and procedures. We wish you and your agency all the best in successfully completing this course.
Think about it, why we came out of this job. We came on this job to help people. Let that be your pillar and build upon that, and you'll be someone out there making change and saving people's lives.
I recognize that when you signed up to become a police officer, it was not to deal with homelessness, but this problem is all of ours, and it is very pervasive, and we really need your help to solve it.
I know when I first got into this field, I walked by a homeless person and he spoke to me and I didn't speak back, and he stopped me dead in my tracks because he said, "You could have said hello." And he's right. I could have said hello. And I think from that day forward, when I encounter homeless people on the street, I always speak.
If you succeed with one person out of 100, you've taken one person's life and turned it around, and you have made a major contribution to society.
It really means a lot when we get so many, "No, I'm not ready. No, I don't want to talk to you. No, get away from me." And you get that one, and you can actually work them all the way through to where they're no longer homeless. That one makes up for 100 conversations where you just weren't able to make that connection.
It just sends such a strong message to the community when they observe a law enforcement officer coming out and talking to somebody that other people ignore. I think it's just that much more impactful because it's coming from somebody that's so respected.
It's easy to treat somebody with respect who smells good, who has a home, who isn't throwing up on you, isn't cursing at you. I mean, that's kind of easy. What really is hard is to respect somebody who is unappealing in every way and is being abusive towards you, but that's the person that needs you the most.